Hey, Misplayers. Keith here at Slight Misplay. I owe you guys a session recap, campaign report, session campaign diary thing from my last session for Curse of Strahd, the Bloodrune Legacy. It was kind of a one-trick pony session. I knew it was going to go in there. You'll recall, if you've seen the previous videos, that the party had just defeated a revenant and were inside the mausoleum outside of Argynvostholt. The characters all took a long rest. I was very generous. I wanted them to have a long rest there. Thought it was a good point. They'd had a few combats. They'd all been busted up quite a bit since journeying into the haunted mansion, and so I gave them a haunted long rest inside the mausoleum. I really want to wrap up Argynvostholt. We went over some recap goals previously. I wanted them to have a clear line into the finish line for this particular location and for this artifact against Strahd, which I've also modified into a personal story arc for Skye and her relationship with Sarek, who is the father of her unborn child, who has possibly been tainted by the bite of Strahd as well. So there's a whole thing going on there with Skye. So I knew I was going to give Skye a dream to kind of not force her, but entice her. I didn't know if this was going to work. I thought this would have a 50-50 chance of working. I hoped that since we had done a recap of what all the goals were for the group, they would have a clear idea that they needed to finish this location up and they needed to find where the sword was in the location. And I had given them some hints on that as well. But I also thought a little extra nudge would do it, and I was gambling here that giving Skye an incentive dream would do the trick. But I didn't want to just give her the dream. I thought that would be telegraphing things a little too much, so I decided to give everybody a dream. Some of them were better than others, but it also gave me an opportunity to signpost some items that they may have forgotten, or just give them a little bit of a red herring, or just give them a little bit of flavor. It turned out that Laura, who was playing Magrathin, the head librarian, had, she's on chemo, or I don't know if she was actually on chemo at the time, but she's definitely been recovering from cancer treatment. So she told me that she had forgotten a lot of the information. I gave her kind of an info dump at the end, a thematic info dump about this whole headless horseman, her severed head familiar Gary. Told them all, as they were laying down for a long rest, a spooky story about a headless horseman that the head library sent after librarians that went off book, so to speak, and kind of left without permission and were doing things they weren't supposed to, collecting heads they weren't supposed to, using them for ill purposes. So I kind of set that up that might be a threat for her, because I am going to use that later on. So what this allowed me to do, when I found out that Laura didn't remember that, some of the other characters, some of them did, some of the other players did, some of them didn't. So I hit her with a dream that was basically just hoofbeats, and I kind of retold the story a little bit quickly to echo the dream. For Lyra, who is a afflicted werewolf, I gave her the sounds of wolves howling. I had her imagine a dream that she was waking up inside a large cavern, which is a location in Barovia. And I had her surrounded by wolves with a big statue, I think a big statue of a wolf. I think I did the statue of Mother Night in there. I also had her hear the sound of a hyena, because her cousin, Falnor, was not really a natural werewolf, but he has a supernatural ability from his tribe that allows him to shape change into a wolf, but that has been kind of manipulated by the dark powers as he has been turning more and more evil. He was a PC, but now he's an NPC as that player is no longer with us. So I tied that part in. For Arcus, I gave him a dream, just a quick little horror dream of the Revenant that he has now defeated twice, who is going to try to come back and kill him again. I just wanted a quick little horror dream, like piercing fiery eyes, that kind of thing. For Yamil, Yamil is an interesting character because he is a character that Chris created after Pate died, and Chris and I worked together to come up with a storyline that would tie Yamil in with Pate, and Yamil's destiny, he thinks, is to bring Pate back to life. But what I did was I had kind of maybe I was influenced by Christmas Carol or something, but I had this idea that I planted in him of him walking through a graveyard, seeing the grave of Pater, finding it, digging up the body, seeing himself in its place, reaching in and grabbing the heart from his own body, and then he, in the dream, was Pater. I think that paid off pretty well. I think he kind of got that. I think that also brought to light a little bit to everybody else some of his little destiny, because he's a cleric, that's his divine quest. I think that kind of shed some light on that, so to speak, to the other characters who may not have known that or may not have picked up on the other hints that he and I have kind of been doing under the table, so to speak. I telegraphed something that might be coming up in Kresk with the Abbey for Aaron's character Aska. I gave her a dream about her brother reincarnated with a demon arm again. I played around a little bit with that. My idea there is that I can pretty much do whatever I want with him because I don't think they ever burned or retrieve the body from him. That's the problem is, if you don't do something with the body in Barovia, I'm going to bring him back. Like, I'm going to, not just to teach you a lesson, because that's just what happens. Like, we're in Ravenloft. The dead are going to come back one way or another, unless you do something, really nasty to them. So I liked playing around with that, trying to think if there's any other characters. I always feel like there's like one or two more characters in the group, but I think that was everybody. Sky's dream, that was the big one. I think I gave that to her last. Her dream was that Sarek, her former lover, who was killed by a black dragon's acid splash spray, told her that she needed to find the sword and complete her destiny and renew his legacy, the Bloodrune sword. And he brought her into Argynvostold, into the big chamber where Vladimir Horngard, which everybody loves that name, so I would never change that name, I guess. If I ever thought about it, I don't think I'd ever change that name. Everybody loves that name. Vladimir Horngard is guarding it, and so he brings her along inside, and then she wakes up, and she's like, I need to get this sword, let's go, guys. And I'm like, perfect. Like, it paid off. It was just the right amount of prodding and pulling her into the right direction. The group was on board with it. They're following her. She's trying to find out, do I know this room? And it was a room that they had just kind of skirted around. But the important thing is they got there now. I think previously they walked into a room with a whole bunch of revenants and they had just been messed up by just one revenant. So they were right to nope their way out of that room at the time. But this time they knew that they had to go into the correct room. Some of the characters found the secret door. I played this a little bit wrong. I think I had a little bit of a misunderstanding. It may actually be unclear in the book, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention closely enough about where the secret door is visible from. Is it visible from the stairway? Is it visible from the room itself? Is it visible from both? So I let them find the door. So some of them were kind of peeking their head through the door in the chamber. Some of them were going around the main room and scrambling over the crumbling remains of the ceiling and the walls from this place. And they went into the room, and I took some inspiration on this. I've run this encounter before, and it was fun. This encounter is a little bit over the party's level, probably like 2 levels. So I've already seen them get messed up by revenants previously, and Vladimir Horngard is a top tier revenant with a great sword +2. I want this to be an epic battle, but I want it also to be winnable, because it's not, at this point, it's not a runaway kind of thing. They can do a snatch and grab. That would be totally fine at this point. They'll make some enemies, but at least they'll get the story points, they'll get the story goals. But I still want it to be a fun encounter because it's built up so much. So I don't know if it's so much fun if they just kind of sneak in and just grab it and run out. So I kind of got the best of both worlds. Also, I had watched the Queen's Gambit a bunch of times while I was prepping this encounter, and I know my players love it. So I decided I was going to work something different in here because I do like challenging myself. I had a whole Dwarven Forge build set up. I had taken pictures of it and I had posted them on Roll20 to use as the map. I had it all set up, but I really decided I wanted to do something different with this one. I put this off for too long. I had the idea rattling around in my head, but the day of the session, I decided to redo the build. I did some quick work with GIMP, which I was not very good at, but it came out great. I basically made the center of the room into a chessboard. I didn't want this to bog down the combat too much, but I came up with some very quick rules for the characters, what roles they would play as far as a chess piece. I assigned roles to each one of them as a chess piece, and I did give them advantage and some extra movement points if they attacked in line with their character's abilities, with their chess character's abilities. So for example, I think I had Aska and Lyra as knights, the ranger and the fighter as knights. So if they move the way a knight moves, the little knight moves, the little L thing, you know what I'm talking about, right? You've heard of chess. So yeah, if they attacked in that line, or if they moved in that line, they'd get extra movement points, just 5 feet extra of movement, just to kind of make it a little bit more tactical. What I also decided I was going to do was make it so that the Phantom Warriors that are going to appear in the room could only move as pawns and can only attack as pawns, because I thought that would kind of dull things down, because the Phantom Warriors they've dropped characters as well. This is definitely a higher level encounter than these guys should be expected to make, but I don't want them to have to, they don't know necessarily what's in this room. They don't know these guys are just going to appear. They don't know who this bad guy is and what level he is. I wanted to kind of balance things out. So I really wanted it to be not a penalization if they didn't do the chess moves. I wanted it to be a reward if they did. What I forgot is that a chessboard is only so big, and the amount of the room that I had set up as a chessboard is only so big. The encounter is only so big, and characters have a lot more movement than I was anticipating. So they would do like 2 moves in a turn, and I was like, you know what? That's great. Like if they outthought me on that one clearly. Like I was too inside my little chess box. I let them do exactly what they should be allowed to for D&D, and I also gave them the advantages that I would have gave them. I actually posted the rules for this in the chat so they would know. I didn't want them to have to keep asking me. I didn't want it to be a mystery. I wanted it to be. The whole idea was that it'd be a cool little chess tie-in without being heavily handed on it. Heavy-handed. It worked out pretty well. So Sky led them into the room, and they have some other characters on the side that are eyeing they see the hilt of the sun sword there. Vladimir Horngard gets to do his monologue, and these great guys, this group is great. They never interrupt my monologuing. They let me play the right music and hit the cues. They love it. I love it. So it's just this mutual respect thing. It's like, hey, it's time for us to just sit back and listen to a story. Just like for me, often I get to sit back with this group and just listen to them talk to each other in character or get into fights or get into some role-playing discussions, and it's just the best of both worlds for this group. I love them so much. They get into this fight with Vladimir Horngard, who doesn't want Strahd to die, because that would lift Strahd's curse, and therefore he is not going to give up the hilt of the Bloodrune sword, also known as the Sun Sword. It's just kind of murky. I don't even know if they know that the Sun Sword is even a thing, so we just call it the Bloodrune sword, and I'll come up with a cool visual effect for it that might be different than the Sun Sword. So instead of being a lightsaber, maybe it'll just be like a red lightsaber. I don't know. That Sun Sword is basically a lightsaber, right? They start fighting. They're not doing a bad job overall, but this guy is tough. And I think I may even have just nuked his regeneration ability, but he's still tough. The other guys are tough. So I think at least 1 or 2 of the characters had dropped at this point. I don't remember. It was like a week or 2 ago already, and I don't remember how many characters have dropped, but at least 1 of them has dropped, possibly 2. Yamel sneaks out from the side of the room, and again, why don't clerics turn undead when they're fighting undead? I don't understand that. Maybe, does he not have the ability to do that? I have to double check with him. I'm pretty sure he does, though. No, I know he does, because he's done it before. So why, when you see that these phantom warriors are, are messing you guys up, I don't think it's going to work on the Revenant. I think they have turn immunity, but get rid of all these other guys. Just turn undead, but he doesn't do that. So it's kind of like that search for traps thing. Maybe one day it'll just, hey, I never do this thing. And there's a lot to remember in D&D, and so that's fine. I might just kind of poke him a little bit at some point. Be like, dude, you're not doing that. You can totally do that. And I mean, come on. Ravenloft is great for clerics, right? I mean, it's hard for them, but it's great for them. They heal everybody when everybody is getting messed up all the time and doesn't have time to rest. And they can turn undead. And Ravenloft is 50% undead and 50% werewolves, right? And 50% mist. It's a big place. So Yamel sneaks out from the secret door, or maybe somebody grabbed the sword, and Vladimir Horngard is planting himself there, and somebody cast a spell, somebody did a smite that knocked him back a few feet. So he was they got him away from the sword hilt, and Yamel grabs it and he gives it to Irenia. And this is great. I think Sky dropped at this point, so they're going to have to do some healing. They do have some healing abilities. I'm not too concerned about that. I think they're going to skedaddle the hell out of there now that they have the sword. But he gave the sword to Irenia. And this is great because Sky hates Irenia. I don't know why she still hates her, because Irenia hasn't really done anything to her. And originally they got along quite well, except that Sky was charmed by Strahd once. And so she fell in love with him, at least while the charm was going. But the charm hasn't been going for a while. But during that time when she was charmed by Strahd, Sky's take on it, Gabby just went with this. And she was just like, am I into it? Yeah. She's like, okay. And so her goal from that point on was to basically kill Irenia to get her out of the picture. And she did. Twice she killed Irenia. Yamel had to bring her back twice. Not dead, but 0 hit points, unconscious, bleeding out, dead. Yamo had to bring her back. He had to smack Sky with a book. This whole big thing happened on a bridge. It took an entire session. It was epic. It was awesome. It was this role-playing within combat, which I just love, as the characters are kind of bickering and playing in character while they're still trying to take on Strahd and a whole mess of wolves and stuff. And guys are golf clubbing wolves off the bridge and passing the magical axe I'd given them that is, has extra, it's called wolf thrower, and it has special abilities against wolves, so they're just teeing up wolves off this bridge, passing the club to the next person and teeing it off again. And while that's all going on, Sky was killing Irenia twice, and so she still has this thing about her, and the party didn't trust either of them for a long time because Sky was constantly trying to kill Irenia and go to Castle Ravenloft, and the party was like, no, you're not doing that. They didn't trust Irenia because she'd been bitten by Strahd. They also don't trust, sometimes they trust Lyra, but then she turns into a werewolf, and they can't really do anything about that, so they tie her up half the time. So half this party ends up tied up, like, half the time. Like, one of our group quotes is, how do you want to be tied up? And it's hilarious. It's great every time. Now Irenia has the hilt of the Bloodrune sword. Sky, I believe, is unconscious. Magwithin wasn't there. Laura had to leave early that night, so she didn't participate in that combat. So I'm curious as to if she's going to be there next time. Her character is a rook. I think I also have Arcus as a bishop and Yamo as a bishop. One's white, one's black. So that worked out well. I'm really, really curious as to what's going to happen. I think I accidentally sent them a screenshot or posted it on Twitter about what the state of the game was, because I was really impressed with how the Dwarven Forge build came out and how it went up on Roll20. So I think they saw how many hit points Vladimir has, and they were not pleased with that. They were like, holy crap. And, if they remember that he regenerates. But I play around with that. I just go for drama with that kind of thing, especially if he's already dropping everybody. It's kind of dramatic enough. I'm not sure if they're going to run. I'm not sure if they're going to try to take him out. I don't know what I'm going to do with these Phantom Warriors when they get to the other side. Do they turn into queens? Can they suddenly just go anywhere and start walking through walls and start attacking them and chase them out? That would be kind of cool. Just kind of Scooby-Doo them out the front of the mansion. That's the state of things right now. It's super exciting. I love it when things just work out and give me ideas to work with based on the character's story. I really, really am finding more and more I enjoy I enjoy using pre-written modules more than I like coming up with my own stuff and running them. I do like writing modules, and I am working on some, but it kind of inspires me more to write my own, and run them, to play test them and so forth, and just to run them. But I really want other people to have that load lifted off them so they can get something well written, well designed in their hands, and they can just have fun while running, because that's one of the best things about running the modules, whether it's something from DM's Guild or one of the hardcovers, is just all of that weight is lifted off you. If it's done well and you have all the information there, it's so easy to improvise, because you're not even improvising. There's so much backstory there. You can just be like, oh, that this door is a such and such. Oh, this leads to there. This character is this. This is how they would act. I'm really hoping to get some a push on some more of my own stuff, getting that out there, some of my stuff published out there. So that's all for this campaign diary. If you do want to support my efforts in getting stuff out there and more videos like this and others and more and better, please feel free to take a look at my Patreon. Feel free to subscribe there. Slight Misplay. You can follow me on Twitter at Slight Misplay. I have a Ko-Fi, a Slight Misplay. I'm on Instagram now. I've been doing some mini painting, some streaming on Twitch, so that's also Slight Misplay. I'm there just about every night for the past 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks. I've been doing some mini painting, which has been great. Just me yakking at you and painting minis. Hopefully I can upgrade some camera equipment soon and really get some better shots of that while I'm telling you my fun stories. I think that's everywhere I am. I said Twitter, right? So feel free, if you have any questions about this, comments on the session, comments about my DM style, Curse of Strahd, anything else that I've, that you just feel like ask. If you just want to talk, man, how you doing? How you doing, man? Then just, leave me a comment below, find me on Twitter, and until next time, onward.